Good evening, good evening.
Hello. You can hear me, Julie?
I can, yeah. Thanks, Paul. All right. So I think most of you have. Amanda, maybe if I could just ask you to turn your video off for now. I think you're here as part of the delegation, and I'll make sure to ask everyone who's presenting to turn their video on once we get to that point in the agenda. Thanks so much. I think we're just waiting for Councillor Trowbridge, and then we should have everyone from the village present.
There you go. It was taking from a long way, apparently.
Okay, it looks like we have everybody from the village here. For those of you who are attending our meeting tonight from the public and also our delegation guests, if you could keep your cameras off and your microphones muted. When the chair calls the delegation, you can turn your video on and unmute yourself. And for those members of the public who may wish to provide input at the various appropriate parts at during the meeting, the chair will also call on you, at which point you are welcome to turn on your video and or your microphone. I'll turn it over to you, Mayor McEwen.
Good, and welcome everybody for our, I guess this is our second virtual regular council meeting for today's date, Tuesday, January the 26th. It's currently 7 o'clock. Welcome everybody for attending. First of all, we'd like to call the meeting to order, and approval of the agenda. The recommendation would read
that the agenda be approved as amended to include a late item under 11A as new business, and that would be an update regarding the pedestrian suspension bridge grant request.
11A is an addendum to the suspension bridge. Okay, could I get someone to approve the agenda as amended? Councillor Cryer, Councillor Laidler. Any further discussions? All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we'll now move on to public input. Public is permitted to provide comments to council on any item shown on this meeting agenda. A 2-minute time limit applies to speakers. I have a written one, comment of public input. Is there any others?
Mayor McEwen, maybe I can just say another reminder. There's been a couple of attendees who've just joined us who might have missed my preamble at the beginning. If everyone who is joining the meeting could please make sure that both your video and your microphone is currently on mute or turned off. And if you would like to speak at either public input or during public question period, you can either use the raise your hand function or simply come off mute to ask your question. Thanks, Mayor McEwen.
Okay, I not seeing any other comments for public input. I'll read out the one that was received. I'm hoping that our planner is Mr. White on the meeting.
He has not joined us. I believe he was planning on drafting a response to the public input. He's working on it right now as within the last couple of minutes here.
Well, I'll read it out then. This is from a Mr. Doug Richardson. Hello, I'm concerned that the subdivision bylaw proposed does not adequately describe Anmore's intent or requirements regarding road dedications, as part of a subdivision unless Anmore has changed their intent. In the bylaws, section 4.1.b, the power is given to the approving officer to use the LGA for highway provisions. In section 513 of the lower government, LGA, local government association, the approving officer has the power to require road dedications. Therefore, as written, the approving officer can take land for this purpose. More so as written, it seems that this is Anmore's intent. The result is therefore that under the existing bylaws, Bellaterre was not required to widen roads. Weinberg was required to on their Fern Drive subdivision. I was required on my Sunnyside subdivision, and Trollbridge is not on his Mountain Air subdivision because permission was given to use the SROWs to be designated use instead. Under the new proposed bylaw, the language is strengthened to allow the approving officer to require road dedications as they see fit under the language of the LGA. This seems completely unfair if the intent is for Anmore to use the SROWs for these types of cases, subdivisions adjacent to existing roads, then this should be explicitly stated as currently written without any mention of intent or explicitly stating the use of SROWs. Then all future such subdivisions could be treated as both Weinbergs and I have been. Then the only recent exception would be the Trollbridge, which seems odd. All residents, landowners should be treated equally. Bylaws should be written clearly and concisely and therefore not subject to the whims of whomever to be in power on the given day, nor applied differently based on who owns the land. Doug Richardson. Do we have Mr. White on at all to?
I believe this query came in just about an hour and a half ago while we were in another meeting. So he is working on it and certainly will endeavor to have an answer provided during that agenda item later on the agenda.
Perfect, good, okay. I see no other further comments and public input. Then we'll move on to, we have a delegation, our yearly delegation, which I so look forward to. The presentation by Ms. Harriet Chang and School District 43 students regarding the recognition of Random Acts of Caring Week, February 14th to 20th. I will now open it up to Harriet Chang. Hello.
Hello, everybody. I am right now with 6 amazing students, and they are going to lead this presentation and they're going to take over. And I'm just going to sit back and enjoy it. So I'm going to pass this over to Amanda right now. She's going to open this for us. Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Ms. Chang. I just wanted to thank everyone on the council, and I wanted to thank the mayor as well for allowing us to do this presentation about RAC Week. It means a lot to every one of us.
All right, so we're just going to do introductions now. So can we start with Rassi?
Hi, my name is Rassi.
And then we have Emma.
Hello, my name is Emma.
And Sherry.
Sorry about that, my mic was muted. Hi, I'm Sherry.
And we've got Mason.
Hello, I'm Mason.
And I'm Amanda.
And Olivia.
Hi, I'm Olivia.
All right, so Rassi, go for it. I'm just wondering, we can't hear you. You're muted, Rassi.
Right, sorry.
And sorry to interrupt. This is Julie speaking. I'm going to be controlling the PowerPoint presentation that you've presented. So just let me know when you'd like me to bring it up on screen and when you'd like me to advance the slides.
You can start it right now. And when speakers finish their slides, if you could just say finished and then, or yeah, like just new slide, that would be great. Thanks.
You should be able to see my screen now.
Yeah. RAC, Real Acts of Caring Week, is February 14th to the 20th, 2021. This year we are calling RAC Week Real Acts of COVID Caring Week because this is an unprecedented time and it's time for unprecedented caring and kindness. Next slide.
Sorry, just some technical difficulties here.
A RAC is doing something caring and kind for another and not expecting anything back in return, except very likely a good feeling inside. RAC has been around for a while now and is making our community and world a better place. This year, we are trying to be creative in finding ways to be caring and kind, which is also keeping everyone safe. This has been difficult, but not impossible. We would like to share what we have come up with you. On the following slides, we will discuss some of the ideas we have come up with.
Our first idea is thank our frontline workers by using social media, posting positive words of encouragement in your windows, and sending cards. Second idea, support local businesses by ordering takeout or purchasing gift cards. Third one, be a good neighbor, especially if you have elderly ones. Shovel their driveway, rake leaves, drop off food from a distance, and use technology to reach out to them to make sure that they are okay. Idea number 4, when you are shopping, only take what you need. If you can afford it, drop off any extras at places which may need them. Number 5, enjoy the together time with your family. One day you will probably look back at this time and remember the fun memories of being together with just your family. Next slide.
6, reconnect by writing letters to people whom you have not seen for a while. Send photos and ask them about their lives. 7, pick up the phone and call someone. Ask them how they are. 8, leave flowers for someone. 9, bring in someone's garbage or recycling bins. Remember to sanitize your hands really well before and afterwards. 10, run errands for someone who needs help or doesn't feel safe going out. 11, buy coffee for the person behind you. 12, be a good listener. Lots of people are going through tough times, and it often feels really good to have someone listen. 13, remember to also be kind and caring to yourself.
So studies have shown that encouraging caring and kindness supports mental health by building self-esteem, decreasing depression, encouraging creativity, and improving cognitive function. But studies have also shown that we feel much happier and we experience a much greater sense of belonging. RAC is obviously a win-win idea, so what are we waiting for? Next slide.
We want to help you learn about RAC. To get updated, you can check out our RAC website at realactsofcaring.org. You can also get updated about what is happening with RAC on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, or you can just Google Real Acts of Caring and lots of information will come up about RAC. We are asking you to recognize RAC Week in your community, February 14th to 20th of this year. Thank you for your support in promoting RAC. It's over.
Good, well, thank you. That went off fairly flawlessly. I'm quite impressed with technology. Again, it's one of the highlights of the year when you all come to present and show us the real acts of kindness that it kind of focuses. I believe we had in previous years, Harriet, did you have a declaration for us and also an ask that we designate on the signboards the Real Act of Caring, identify the Real Act of Caring week? Is that similar?
Well, actually, yes, actually, we're not quite finished. So I'm just gonna pass this to Rassi. So
Okay.
Go ahead, Rassi, sorry.
Yeah, we're just going to be sharing some real acts of caring that we've done this past year. So for me, I recently had my hair cut and I donated it to Wigs for Kids. So that's my rack.
Awesome. Does anybody else have one that they want to share? Listen, you have to unmute.
Real acts of COVID caring is very important now. I wrote a letter to someone in a care home who was turning 100 years old. She is isolated and has no one to celebrate with. This cheered her up a lot.
That's awesome. Thanks, Mason. Does anybody else have one? You just sort of wave that I can see you. All right, Olivia.
So ever since I got my driver's license in October, I've tried to at least once a month to pay for the car behind me in a drive-through. And this is a really great way to give back right now as well, because it is a non-contact way as well.
Love it, Olivia. Awesome. Sherry, did you have your hand up?
Yes. For the past couple of weeks, I've been going out into the neighborhood and cleaning up the garbage that was left behind on the ground.
That's awesome. Thank you. Anybody else have one to share out of our group?
I can share one.
Yep.
So a couple weeks ago, my coworker, her mom had their car, so she needed a ride back to her place. So I gave her the ride.
Awesome.
And seeing the smile on her face made my day. Made the long shift worth it.
That's awesome, Amanda. Thank you. All right, so Mr. McEwen did say or did ask about the board, and I think Amanda was going to speak to that. So Amanda, did you want to just bring that up?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if you guys wouldn't mind putting up the dates for Rack Week, on announcing what it was and like the days on the board that you would see when you enter Anmore.
Absolutely. And also, I think in the past, we've also proclaimed Rack Week in the village of Anmore, and we will certainly be doing the same. So thank you again. Way to go. I was a little nervous when we first tried to do this in regards to the Zoom, but it worked flawlessly. And it's so great to see you guys all. And I'm fortunate enough, I see some of you in the neighborhood walking around. So it's great, and keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate this opportunity. This was great. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for supporting RAC all these years.
Good. Okay, we'll move on now with the agenda. You guys don't need to hang around if you don't want to. It's up to you. Anyway, we've got the minutes of the regular council meeting held on January 12, 2021. The recommendation would read:
That the minutes of the regular council meeting held on January 12th, 2021 be adopted as circulated.
Can I get someone to move those minutes? Moved, seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried unanimously. Is there any business arising from those minutes? No, not seeing any. We'll move on to consent agenda. Any council member who wishes to remove an item for further discussion may do so at this time. We have two different things on the consent agenda. Anybody want to pull anything off of that? Not seeing anything. I'll ask someone to move the consent agenda. Moved, seconded. Any further discussion? See none. All those in favor? Carries unanimously. Okay, we're now on to legislative reports. Rezoning proposal 2307 Sunnyside Road, third reading and adoption. Report dated January 20th, 21 from Mr. Richard White is attached.
So Mayor McEwen, I'm actually going to speak to this evening, if that's okay.
Okay.
So this proposal has been in front of council for a number of reiterations and for a number of years, as the report outlines. And we are moving towards finalizing the development proposal and the rezoning. So as a reminder for council, the last time that this has been in front of you in any form was during the public hearing on October 15th, 2019. And subsequent to that, typically what would happen is the developer would arrange for the various legal documents, and in this case, a community amenity contribution, to be arranged and delivered to the village prior to final adoption of the bylaw being put forward. There had been a number of months where we had heard from the applicant that they were working on putting that information together for us. And as recent as today, we've heard that the covenants are being signed. They have been signed by the proponent and also need to be signed by their lender. And I've gotten a letter from their lender advising that they are going through that process right now. So while we don't have the signed covenants, we do have a letter that says that they are being looked at and will be returned to the village in short order. Similarly, we've been provided with some verification that the community amenity contribution is also currently being put together. However, the village has not specifically received it. So in light of that, tonight, staff would actually recommend that we don't actually adopt the bylaw as it's been presented, because we want to make sure that we have that information in our hand. However, council, if they would like, could consider giving a third reading to the bylaw. And then as soon as we receive that documentation and the funds, then we would bring forward the bylaw for final adoption for council consideration. So I'm happy to answer any questions that council might have on this bylaw.
Just a couple of points in Mr. White's report. He said that to date there have been assurances made by the owner applicant that documents and CACs will be presented on multiple occasions. However, nothing has been received by the village at the time of the report was prepared. How are we being assured that those timeframes are going to be met? Because I see that the introduction was almost 4 years ago, and I'm wondering as well as to, a lot has changed even with our zoning bylaw in that time.
So in terms of the new assurances that we've received, as opposed to hearing from the proponents that they're putting together the information that is required, we've heard directly from their lender. So that's the differentiation in terms of why we're feeling that we're moving forward with this proposal and that we are going to see the results that are required.
Okay, I'll open it up to council. If council has any questions or concerns, Councillor Weber.
Yeah, how does the subdivision and development control bylaw affect this development?
If the subdivision and development control bylaw is adopted tonight, then any future subdivision applications will be required to adhere to all requirements of that bylaw. What we're considering tonight is a rezoning, and so the landowners have not yet applied for subdivision. Therefore, when they do, they'd have to meet the requirements of the new subdivision and development control bylaw. My understanding is that the majority of the requirements have been met through the rezoning proposal, but that will obviously be reviewed by our approving officer when the application is submitted.
Okay. And just looking at the report, it says, the recommended option at the top is that council give third reading and adopt the zoning amendment bylaw, but then in the report, it says in the second paragraph on page 15, it is not recommended that council grant third and final readings of the bylaw.
Yes, so this is all dependent on us receiving that documentation. We were anticipating to have received it ahead of tonight's meeting, but because we have not, staff recommend not adopting the bylaw, but you could give it third reading tonight if you so wish. And we would wait until we had that information and documentation and funds in hand before we would bring it forward for final adoption. There are other options presented to council as well. If you would also have the option to actually rescind first and second readings of the bylaw as it stands right now, which and effectively reject the application. Or you could rescind second reading and seek further changes to the proposed rezoning.
Okay. It's been a long process. I'd like to kind of keep it in the forward direction. I don't really want to send it back, but it makes sense maybe to not move it forward until all the requirements have been met. That's the only comments I have.
Any other comments from council? I guess my concern is that much longer is this going to drag out? So could we set a deadline of Ms. Halliwell, would it be appropriate by next council meeting that if we don't see some of these tangibles that are being asked for, if they don't come forward, that we will bring this back and possibly rescind the application?
Certainly, council could ask staff to bring forward the report at next week's meeting and follow up with the applicant and advise that council will be considering whether or not to adopt the bylaw at the next meeting, and that the requirements would be to have the covenant document as well as the funds in hand ahead of that meeting.
Next week may be a little bit too quick. What is the following meeting after that? That would be the February
the 16th.
February 16th. I think that's plenty of time then to see if there's something moving forward here. So could we go back to the proponent with that date and say that this will, from what I'm hearing right now, will the motion would probably be that we don't give it third reading, that we just simply status quo and then bring it back on the February 18th, you said?
Yes, yeah. So
Yeah.
Council could give it third reading and just not adopt the bylaw, or Council could leave things the way they are and defer this to the February 16th meeting.
Okay, and so what recommendation would that be then?
So if you would like to defer, you could pass a resolution to defer. Otherwise, I can read out a resolution to pass third reading if that's what you'd like to consider.
Well, from what I've heard from Council, let's first of all, I'll put the motion forth to defer this item until the February 18th meeting. Do I have someone to move that? Moved, seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we'll now move on to the subdivision and development control bylaw. Ms. Elrick.
Thank you. I have a resolution that I can read, and I also see that Mr. Boyd is online, so he might be able to address the question from earlier from the resident. So this has been before council a couple of times before. So the recommendation tonight would be that council adopt Anmore subdivision and development control bylaw number 633/2020.
Could I get someone to move that? Moved and seconded. And now I'm going to ask if Mr. White or whomever could answer the question that was posed in the public input regarding this item.
We do have both Mr. Boyd here as well as Mr. White. So I'm happy for either one of you to provide some.
Do you want me to read it out again, or do you have copies of the question in front of you?
No, I have a copy.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Boyd.
Yeah, so my response would be, our intent would be to take dedicated land on the majority of the cases. The bylaw does provide some flexibility with regards to statutory right-of-ways, and that would be a secondary option. Our first option would always be to take dedicated land, especially when it's a brand new subdivision, as in something like Corvado redevelopment. That would always be a dedicated land issue. And statutory right-of-ways would be only come into effect when it might potentially affect a development requirement, but I would always want to, well, the village should always be looking to take a dedicated land. That makes sense.
Good. Hopefully that answers Mr. Richardson's question. Thank you, Mr. Boyd, who is the village engineer. So we've got it moved and seconded the Anmore subdivision development control bylaw. I'm just going to open it up for council. Any questions? Councillor Weberink.
I just wanted to confirm for clarity, there's a lot of people on this meeting. This is just a framework for development. We can pick and choose whatever we want, you know. It lays out the requirements to put a sewer pipe in the ground that may not be used for 50 years. We could choose to do that. We could choose not to do that. I'm going to maybe I'll pose that question to the chair, to Mr. Boyd.
Go ahead, Mr. Boyd.
Thanks for the chair. I would say we try not to write bylaws as in we always try to give ourselves some flexibility, but we want to be upfront, and so everyone knows what's really required of them. With regards to the sewer, we've kind of talked about that only small subdivisions will be required to, will be absolved of that requirement. So we can describe the subdivision, I think off the top of my head, it's 4 units or less. And so infill would never be required to have a sewer installed. However, we do give ourselves some leeway to say, hey, maybe in some circumstances this doesn't make sense, and so therefore we won't ask the proponent to do it. I don't know what that is. Each particular subdivision, you know, has its own unique requirements, so that's how I would address that.
Yeah, and then Anmore is unique. I mean, I realize we're growing and Anmore is changing, and it's been changing for the 25 years that I've been here. But we're still in the woods. We're still behind other communities, and I just want people to know that this bylaw doesn't take control away from us. The idea is to give us more control over what we do.
Yeah,
good. Good. Any other questions regarding this, Councillor Trowbridge?
Okay, so just to be clear, you're addressing Doug Richardson's email submission, Chris, is that right?
Correct.
Yeah, so there's within his email, there's an implication that somehow I'm being treated differently than other people. I think that needs to be clarified publicly in the meeting, because if that's the case, I need to know why, because I was unaware of that. And if it's not the case, I want to put this implication to bed. It's not fair to leave it hanging there unaddressed.
No, I would say you're not being treated unfairly. This is a new subdivision, and we're putting a new subdivision together, not for Councillor Trowbridge's subdivision or any other particular subdivision. It is a new subdivision with new rules and regulations going forward, and therefore, I personally, I don't look in the past of what was done in the past. This is what we're trying to do in the future. This isn't a retroactive look at things. This is a bylaw that's been adopted very similarly to everywhere else in the Lower Mainland, other places in British Columbia. I don't believe there's special dispensation being given to anyone. It's a fair shake at requirements, and we try and make sure that we are as lenient as possible, I would say, in these requirements. I don't want there to be a grey area, which then means someone can't subdivide because we took away the requirement of a statutory right-of-way. This is there to be flexible for people within the village to be able to subdivide their property. And in all cases, most cases, we want a dedicated land. However, the statutory right-of-way will give us the requirements which we need also.
Is it reasonable to assume that, as we discussed back in the meetings when we were talking about these, that one of the reasons too was to ensure that the infill project, which requires a full acre, has the same as almost every other jurisdiction in the Lower Mainland, has the opportunity for statutory right-of-way, so that the calculation doesn't disqualify all 35 of our infill lots, for example.
Correct. That's exactly why we have this now introducing the statutory right-of-way, is to provide that leniency, to be perfectly frank, towards so many circumstances. I don't believe it's right that we take away someone's subdivisional potential because we want to take away a piece of land from them for something in the future. Therefore, statutory right-of-way provides us that opportunity to use that in the future without having to take away the infill requirement from those people as well. Because otherwise, we would never get it because the person wouldn't subdivide. Let's put it that perspective, is that we have an interest in gaining these subdivisions and the extra bit of road right-of-way. And the only way we will get it is through infill and other situations. And so if we preclude them from being able to infill, we'd never be able to get that extra piece of land. So therefore, it makes sense to be able to have some leniency to be able to use those pieces of land and be able to get that requirement of right-of-way in the future.
Yeah, makes sense. And if we need it, we take it.
Yes.
Yep. Thank you.
Good. Any other questions or comments? I just wanted to confirm one thing, and that was in regards to the concern about sewer infrastructure for smaller subdivisions and infill, and that precludes it up to at least 4 units plus, so to speak, and stuff like that. I look back at the fact that if we were able, as you've said, from an engineering point of view, to put these pipes in the ground, they're not going to be aging unless they're used. You think of Crystal Creek and the challenge road that we have there, and even the challenge building the road. We weren't even sure at the time how septics were going to take up there because they're basically fully engineered on rock faces. It would have been smart at that time to put some sort of piping in the ground in case there was a substantive failure and stuff like that. I don't know how we would do it now. It's really challenging. So I really am appreciative of that, and I think there has to be a little bit of, we certainly don't want to take the subdivision rights of anybody's regards to if they have a 2 or 3 acre or 4 acre parcel with these road right-of-ways, but they are key for us moving forward, and even optioning different modes of transportation, whether it be bike lanes or, who knows, there's been even comments of scooter paths in regards, or, golf carts and stuff like that. We have lots of options down the road, and we know that, we certainly know that in Ravenswood, the width of the road really is problematic in regards to things, especially when there's any sort of event and at somebody's home, and that for ingress in regards to some of the fire department and stuff like that. So I think this is well reviewed. So I thank you very much, and I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. And while I have you on, just on this topic before I go, we've had, the village is experiencing an incredible amount of interest as of late regarding property values. And I've been receiving a lot of calls in regards to what people can do with properties that they're looking at. And I think that we need to have a bigger discussion about a complete review of our newly 2-year-old zoning bylaw and how it applies to the building permits. And, one of the things that we haven't talked about is, are we creating parcels that are no longer conforming due to the new zoning bylaw? And I think it's really imperative. And I'd like some direction from council as to task, I would say, our approving officer and building inspector, and possibly Mr. White, the planner, and Mr. Boyd, the engineer, as to just, if we could have a wholesome review of that, just to make sure that they're not contradicting. I know a lot of people have brought some concerns up to my attention as to the two things sort of kind of battling each other and not being as clear. And one of the things that that first put me onto council was I had subdivided a parcel lot, I guess about 15 years ago. And it was a very, very arduous task to do that. Constantly, the goalposts kept changing. And we need a clear, most of these people that are doing these 1 or 2 or 3 lot subdivisions are not experienced developers. They are just, they're our friends, they're our neighbors, they're residents of the village, and we need to clearly articulate what is required of them and what their opportunities are with that. So I'm hoping that council could get behind directing staff to move forward with this. I'll just, it's not on, it is relative to what we're just talking about right now. So I'm just going to open up to council if they have any thoughts on this topic. Councillor Webering, sorry.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mayor McEwen. I don't want to stop anyone. I don't want to make it difficult for anyone to do anything in the village. I think it's, council is the high level visionaries. We look at things like density and where we want trails, how we want our community to look as a whole. We don't get into details. We're not qualified to do that. I think we're lucky enough if we can understand it all. It's a lot to read and a lot to really understand. But yeah, I've never developed any land here. I've never experienced it firsthand, but I've certainly talked to some people that have found it very frustrating. And in fairness, I think it has gotten better over the years. I think from what I hear, it was worse in the past. So, but I'm all for making it better and better and making it clear. So yeah, I would be totally behind that.
I would argue that I don't think it's gotten much better. And that's what I find extremely frustrating. So I'll pass it on to Councillor Trowbridge.
Mayor McKeon, I'd have to say I don't think it's gotten much better, or if it was worse in the past, I can't imagine what that was like. Because it's been a horrific experience for me personally, and I've spoken to all of you before in the past to say I don't want to see other people go through this. I don't want to speak ill of past staff members, but the direction I've never developed anything in my life. I had no idea what to do. I didn't even know if my property could be subdivided or anything else. So I came to the individual at the time who was planner and approving officer and looked for direction. And that direction changed materially every matter of weeks, months, etc. And the bills kept rising and rising and rising, and then found out that there were certain things that should have been clear to me and that I probably should have done in a different order to save some money, be efficient, etc. So, one of the things I really want us to do is put out a checklist, because again, thinking of infill people, they are likely not experienced development folks. They're likely, just people that go, oh, there's an opportunity, let's try and jump on it. I think we need to have a checklist up front to say they need to check, lot coverage, FAR, whatever it is, a whole list of initials that people don't really know what they mean before they start spending money and going down a path that they have to redo. As I have had to redo so many things so many different times. So we're on the right track. We've got to make it clearer and easier for people.
Good. So Ms. Halliwell, do you need a motion for that, or is this enough direction from council?
A motion would be preferable, and I believe Councillor Creer just had her hand raised up there at the end too.
did.
Sorry, you might not have seen that.
Councillor Crier.
That's all right. Thanks, Mayor McEwen. Thanks, Ms. Halliwell. Yeah, I would like to think that we've gotten better at the process of subdividing and development, but I guess in hearing from Mayor McEwen and Councillor Trowbridge, I guess we haven't. I think it's time we do take a closer look at that, and I would fully support that. We are at a pivotal time, and we have a lot going on. That I think our future is, we have exciting things coming up in the future, so I do think it's time to do that.
Good. Okay, well then motion could read just simply that we direct staff to do a complete review of our newly 2-year-old zoning bylaw and the implications within our OCP and building permit approval process. Does that sort of sound good enough? Someone to move that? Second it? I'll open up for any further discussion. See none. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Now we'll move on to, we have some new business, 11A, which is the suspension bridge. And who wants to speak to this?
I can speak to that, Mayor McEwen.
Ms. Halliwell.
Great, thank you. So if council recalls, we had a rather quick discussion, not a quick discussion, but it was quick notification of a grant opportunity. We discussed it on the at the December 15th regular council meeting. And the grant itself is a federal and provincial partnership that is going to provide funding to certain projects, one of which would increase active transportation. And the funding that's provided will cover 100% of the cost. So there's no requirement for the municipality to provide any funding to this, to any projects that are funded under this program. And it's intended to be a bit of a stimulus fund. So the projects themselves are required to be completed by December 31st of this year. And so the Parks and Rec Committee had recently been discussing an ambitious project to cross Mossam Creek at the end of Elementary Road where the Fortis right-of-way is, and that would go over to the end of Mountainair Lane. And the project would include a suspension bridge that would cross that span. And at the time, council agreed to move forward with the application. It was thought that the cost would be approximately $1 million. However, at that time, because it was such a quick notification of the grant, a full design hadn't been undertaken by our engineering firm. And so since that time, as we've been preparing the application, which is due to be submitted tomorrow by 2 p.m., there's been some additional costs that have been allocated in terms of making sure that we're covering all of our bases and that we're getting a bridge that we think is going to be the best for our community. So the costs for the project have gone up to just over $2.8 million, $2,850,000. And so I'm coming to council tonight to ask for a revised resolution to be able to submit with the grant application tomorrow to reflect those costs. There is stipulation that any cost overruns are borne by the municipality. And so this figure includes a healthy contingency to ensure we've accounted for any of the unknowns that we might come across. And so we're confident that there wouldn't be any cost borne by the municipality that would be over and above that $2.85 million. So I have a resolution that I can read out and then certainly answer any questions that council may have, if that's okay.
Sure.
Great. So the resolution is that council directs staff to apply to the Canada, British Columbia Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program grant, COVID-19 Resilience Infrastructure Stream, for the construction of a bridge over Mossam Creek project for a total cost not to exceed $2,850,000, and confirm the village's willingness to provide overall grant management as well as cover any cost overruns should the application be successful.
Can I get someone to move that? And second? Second? Okay, I'll open up for some discussion. Councillor Trowbridge.
Julie, just some clarity. This grant is a completely different stream than the hub grant that we're pursuing. That's correct, right?
That's correct. It's a completely different funding program.
And it is also unlike 90% of our grants that we've ever, well, actually, we never get them anyway. But this one, we have a high degree of probability of attaining, but it is 100% grant.
That's correct. Yeah. So when you look at the guidelines for the grant, we feel as staff that this project checks a lot of the boxes off that would lead it to be successful. And you are also correct in the fact that this is 100% funded by both the provincial and federal governments combined. So to compare the grant that we applied for last year for the Anmore Community Hub, the provincial and federal contribution would not exceed 73.33% of the project cost. So there's a requirement for the municipality to put in some of their own funding as well, and that's not the case for this project.
Right, and the estimated million up to almost 3 million sounds astronomical and frightening. And if we were paying for it, would probably kill the project. But it's important, I think, Mr. Boyce was explaining to us that the estimation for the original project was for a very narrow footbridge that was modeled after the sea to sky, essentially. But this bridge, because it connects north and south, we felt needed to be roughly 4 times wider to have emergency access for the fire department, et cetera, and have utility as well as a sort of recreational value. So that it's not the same bridge. It's not like, I just want to make that point. It's not like the bridge has a cost overrun of 1.8 million. It's now a $2.8 million bridge, completely different than the original one we had contemplated.
Correct. Yeah, this bridge now with the width of it will allow for pedestrians and people with strollers and bicycles that they're walking to pass each other a bit more easily than the one that it had previously sort of been based on, which was this one, the sea to sky that you mentioned.
That's it for me.
Good. Any other questions or comments from council? Councillor Webrick.
I mean, it sounds great. We've been wanting a bridge across that creek for years. I remember 25 years ago, a neighbor and I built a little bridge, and well, within 2 weeks it was washed away. It's clearly not built very well. And I know a local resident built the current bridge there now. I guess the only thing is politics gets in the way, and revenue streams are revenue streams. I know this is 2 different revenue streams, the one for the bridge and the one for the village hall. I just would hate to see the perception that we were given a bridge, so there's nothing for the village hall. It is a little bit of a risk, but I understand they have 2 completely different revenue streams. Is that correct, Ms. Oliver?
Yes, that is correct. Yes.
And I like the fact that we don't have to pay anything. It seems a shame not to take advantage of this. This is obviously clearly coming up because of COVID and re-energizing the economy and keeping everybody working. So it seems a really missed opportunity if we don't apply for it. So I would be in favor of applying.
And maybe just one more thing I could add, Mayor McEwen, is that we have reached out to some of the local interest groups, and we have received letters of support to date from Torca, they're the mountain biking club that operates locally, as well as the Burrard Inlet Marine Enhancement Society. They're the ones responsible for running Mossam Creek. Both of those organizations are supportive of the project. As well, we've received a letter of support from Metro Vancouver, as it does align with their regional greenway strategy to connect communities. And so the last letter of support that we've asked for is from the City of Port Moody, and that's on their regular council agenda tonight. So we'll hopefully hear back very quickly tomorrow as to whether or not they'll be able to furnish us with a letter as well. We have also sent out letters to the adjacent property owners advising them that there's the potential for this project to move forward as well. We'll see sort of, what happens as a result of the application submission if we go forward with it.
Good. Anybody else before I go to Councillor Trowbridge again? Okay, Councillor Trowbridge.
Julie, just to Councillor Wavering's point, I think it's a pretty valid point. None of us would trade a bridge for funding at the hub. The hub is, I think, a more critical amenity for the village. If it became apparent or high risk that there was going to be some restriction on funding and it was an either or situation, we can extract ourselves from the submission. We can put it in and pull it back if that becomes a risk, right?
Yes, if we wanted to withdraw our application, we could do so as long as, of course, it was ahead of any decisions or announcements that are made, which we do anticipate would be rather quick with this particular funding stream because of the expectation that the project is completed by the end of this year.
Thank you.
Good. I just wanted to add a few comments. I really appreciate and understand the scope has changed, but providing access to the Sasquatch Volunteer Fire Department in this area is essential. This area, for those who aren't aware, and I'm sure most are, could really connect our village. I think it would be actually quicker to ride a bike from Anmore Elementary to Eagle Mountain and the secondary school in our municipality than it would be to go along the road, East Road and Sunnyside, and also much safer. So I've heard from a lot of people that this would just be an absolutely game changer for our village. And, you know, we certainly have the permission of Fortis because it is their right of way. You know, and I'll put my other hat on as chair of the Metro Vancouver Regional Parks. I can tell you that parks are having a profound effect during these COVID times, and people are really understanding and realizing the health impacts that getting out into nature and that are providing. Our park usage now is up over 50%. We had a record a couple years ago of 11.6. We already hit almost 16.5 million people got out into our regional parks over the last year. We are having a tremendous influx of people that are really getting out and cherishing our region and getting back into nature for the health benefits of it. I can tell you as well that this ties in well with our regional parks plan and trail plan that could connect everybody. I truly think that if this was done, it could be a game changer, to the point where it actually concerns me. And I've said this at Metro Vancouver about, with the advent of the electric bike, how much of a thoroughfare this could really become because of its ease of use and proximity. So I'm very supportive, but I will reiterate what my fellow councillors have said. I can't, I hope we get this, but I wouldn't want us to get this at the expense of the funding for the hub, because that is really the number one priority of this village. But I'll tell you, this could clearly be a game changer. And I compliment Councillor Trowbridge, head of our Parks Committee, for really taking this on and working with the committee. And I do think we should apply for it. I recognize tomorrow is the deadline, but you know, the government is in a process of handing out a lot of money. And I'll tell you, we have been underserved when it comes from, you know, from any grants. So this would be a welcome advance, as well as the hub. And wow, what an amazing thing for our community to have, to be able to open up our trail network and work from this. So with that being said, we've got it moved in second. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. And again, thank you, Councillor Trowbridge, for taking this on. And also for Mr. Boyd for all the hard work you've done in regards to the designing of this. We'll now move on to item number 12A, the Public Safety Committee. Councillor Tim Laidler, Chair of the Public Safety Committee, provide update on the committee activity. Councillor Laidler.
Muted.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Thank you, Mayor McEwen. Yes, the committee had has had 2 meetings so far. The first meeting was just laying out the terms of reference and the way we were going to carry on and setting the meetings. The second meeting, we had Corporal
Raymer.
Attend the meeting. and he went through a whole list of things that the RCMP are doing. Actually, as an ex-Vancouver police officer, I was quite impressed with the lack of crime in the village. There is some, there's no doubt about it, but it's over a year as opposed to a month. And there doesn't seem to be a speeding problem. He's out fairly regularly, and he's lurked by the four-way stops, by the school zones, etc. And I think he's done a good job in slowing traffic down, period. We had a little bit of confusion about whether we could have another meeting earlier or not. Ms. Eldridge straightened that out for us. And our next meeting is going to be on February the 10th.
Good. Councillor Lader, I know one of the concerns that I've heard from many people is the block watch, and how is it coming in regards to getting reestablished in the municipality?
The block watch, they've only got 15 block watch captains, and they want more. And I will be reaching out with to Ms. Halliwell and Ms. Eldridge to see if we can improve the number of people that volunteer for block watch.
Good. I know that I've been in contact with the RCMP regarding some of the recent issues around, and the frustrating thing is that they are fairly tight-lipped in regards to what information they can come out with. But I have also followed up with some of the stats regarding the concerns about excessive speeding and that, and you know, from the reports that the RCMP are providing, they've done a good job in monitoring, especially the school zone on Sunnyside in regards to things. And I think, you know, they're not being shy about being out there with a radar gun. It's not like they're hiding in the woods, and they're saying that people are being very respectful. So it's good to hear.
I agree. The only real concern I had, and we haven't had time, it only happened a week ago. There was a vast number of RCMP officers in the area, and I believe it was a home invasion. And I'm not sure if anybody received any communication on this, but that was one of the concerns of the committee, that we have, you know, bearing in mind the privacy aspects, that we certainly have a better communication over ongoing crimes that are occurring in the village. Whether that's possible or not, we don't know.
You know, I think I know that Ms. Halliwell has sent out a notice that the new OIC, the officer in command for the Coquitlam regiment, is going to be coming and paying a visit to this council. So that will be one of the questions that we need to ask him, because I field a lot of those questions from people as to, you know, what's going on in that. And it is frustrating that we don't know what's going on, but we also have to respect the privacy. My worry is similar to what's happening with this unfortunate situation in Port Moody, where the lady has gone missing, is all of a sudden, you know, the rumor mill starts. And I certainly put a kibosh to any of the rumors and unsubstantiated facts that are floating around there, because it's, as I've known in the past, there's a lot of instances, even up here, that it's interesting what the actual final verdict is in regards to the situation.
Exactly, yeah.
So anyway, well, thank you for your good work on that. And please, we will have, as a council, we will be preparing some things, I would imagine, to come forward for your committee to focus on.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, I'll move on to the mayor's report then. I've got a few things to talk about. On January 14th, I met with not our MP, but our neighboring MP, Ron McKinnon, and talking to him about the Village Hub funding, and he was very supportive. I told him that we were working with our MP, Nellie Shin, so he was going to get in touch with his office and do whatever they can. The federal government is excited about finding shovel-ready projects, and as I have a fairly good rapport with Ron McKinnon, MP McKinnon. He was very supportive, and he was going to submit a letter of support on our behalf for the funding, which I think is up to $2.5 million, which is shared between the feds and the province. I also sat in as the council liaison to our first inaugural APC meeting on on January the 18th, Mr. John Burgess was appointed as the chair. There was a couple rezoning applications, and it was a really wholesome discussion that I was able to listen in on, and some really good questions. And Mr. White was there as our planner to be able to answer a lot of those. Yes, on Monday, well, actually yesterday, myself and a couple of the councillors sat in on some zoning information session in regards that a local architect had brought forth some real challenges with some proposals and that, and some of the things that he wasn't sure we were aware of. And it was very informative. We had Mr. Gregg and the building department, as well as the planning department, just giving a different eye on some of these issues that are coming forward. And it's something that sort of we talked about forth, and hopefully we can get a wholesome report back to see some of these changes that need to be made to make the process much more streamlined and much more kind of consistent throughout. I wanted to, again, congratulate and accolades Julie or Miss Halliwell to Public Works. They are prepared and ready for anything that winter has to throw at us, and I really appreciate how well and stocked they are in regards to everything. I want to send out a big congratulations to Jamie Ross, former councillor of the village of Belcarra, getting elected as mayor this past Saturday. I look forward to meeting with him and working with him, especially as seen as how we share the Saskmat Volunteer Fire Department. Really big congratulations to him. And then finally, I wanted to just bring up to the fact of people living in the community that we're already 3 weeks into the new year, and we're already, I think the last 2 or 3 weekends, Bunsen Lake has reached capacity and they're turning people away. This is unheard of. And I think that this council we're doing things in the background. We're working on a window sticker program that will be instituted. This is going to be a busy year for us. We're still going to be in the crutches of the COVID lockdown for quite some time now. And I think Bunsen is going to at least experience as much pressure as it did last year, this year. So we're going to be doing everything we can to keep the traffic from not bunching up at the north end of the village and really affecting those homeowners that can't get in and out, and also the safety of the northern part of the village. So I just wanted to let everybody know that Bunsen is already at capacity, and people have, it's all over Instagram, and I think people are flocking here from all throughout the region. So just wanted to so those are my comments. I'll now open up to council reports. Councillor Cryer.
Thanks, Mayor McEwen. A couple of things to report. First is on January 14th, we had our first community engagement and committee meeting. And we reviewed our 2020 goals. We obviously fell short of what we had intended on doing, but we're very pleased that we did do an excellent job of soliciting donations thanks to the community for 3030 Gordon Transitional House and Shelter. Very pleased about that. And also we got as far into our Welcome to Anmore guide as we possibly could, and it is now with our designers. So we're hoping to see that project come to us soon for one last look. And then we will be distributing that to all new residents, but I think as part of our plan, it's to also send it out to all of our residents so they have a good resource for all of the questions that come from living in our village. We also set our 2021 plan, which looks quite a bit like our 2020 plan. Knowing full well we will likely still be in the throes of COVID, we are focusing mainly on our Anmore archives, maintaining those and picking up the gap that, how do we continue to collect things during this time when we're not gathering, but we have all of the terrific storyboards that you can view in Village Hall, and we also display them during our events, but there's been a little bit of a lapse. So we're going to try to pick up some of the pieces that have been dropped in the past few years, and then also work more on maintaining our heritage and the stories. So we're going to be seeking out some grants in hopes of just finding new ways to carry forward. So there may be some asks coming of the community And you can watch for those in any upcoming newsletters. Another thing, of course, we discussed was the success of Candy Cane Lane. Although we were not able to officially support it, we were overjoyed with the response and the hard work that was put into the event from Georgia Lions. And I have a recommendation that I would like to bring forward. I would like it if we could send a letter of appreciation to Georgia, thanking her for her efforts and on behalf of council. So I guess the recommendation would be to have staff draft a letter on behalf of council to recognize Georgia for her hard work in setting up Candy Cane Lane, as well as soliciting donations for Eagle Ridge Hospital Foundation, however that looks. And I hope that you all support that.
Good, I certainly do. It was great to be able to walk through. I think we walked through there 4 or 5 times over the holidays. It was pretty magical, especially when we had that dusting of snow. So, and I think also we should mention the homeowners that really went above and beyond to set up their houses for this incredible display. I think a letter of thanks should possibly go up to them as well.
I like that.
Yeah.
And of course, we will be expanding upon that next year somehow, hopefully, with a little more participation from all of us.
Hopefully we can, join the two in regards to a lot of people.
It sure would be nice.
Certainly when they walk through, then conjugated up in Spirit Park. And Public Works did an amazing job. This was the first year they took it over, and I was very, very impressed. So. Yeah.
And then just one other thing to mention, on January 22nd, I met with our MP, Nellie Shin, on a topic related to homelessness. But in our conversations, we did discuss the Village Hub, and I thanked her for her support of that. And she's very keen to keep in the loop, and she's excited about what's going on here, and was asking for an update. So I think it's important that we keep in touch with her on what we have going on with the Village Hub. And that is it. Do we need anything more on that recommendation for Georgia, or is that just enough to?
Ms. Halliwell?
I think that's fine. We can draft something and get that sent out.
Good.
Maybe a little treat as well.
Okay. Councillor Wevering.
Yeah, just a couple of just to reiterate some of what you said, Mayor McEwen. I would also like to congratulate Jamie Ross for being elected to Mayor of Belcarra. It's very important that we have a good relationship with Belcarra because of the Saskmat Volunteer Fire Department. It's money that we spend, comes out of our taxes, and obviously with the talk about the upgrade of the fire halls, it's really, really important that we have a good working group there. So I'm very happy. I know Jamie. I've worked with him for a few years. He's a great guy. I think it'll go quite well. Speaking to what Councillor Laidler was talking about the incident, the home invasion, that happened in my neighborhood, and I'd love to inform people and tell people what happened, but I have no idea. The police were canvassing people in the neighborhood trying to get video footage, so something definitely happened. I don't know the details. I have to believe that if they didn't issue any sort of warning to residents, there's no danger to residents. But it would be nice if they would at least say, look, there was an incident, but there's no danger to residents. It was an isolated incident. Something, this silence, I don't think it's acceptable. And I want to bring that up with the new officer in charge. We've had so many things up here. Thank goodness we have a safety committee now. And I'd like to thank all the members that joined the committee and Councillor Laidler for taking that on. I think there's probably lots of things to talk about, and I think it's going to be, I've always felt it was an important committee, but we just didn't have the people. So now we do, and I'm really looking forward to some of the recommendations that they bring to us. And just a reminder, we're not through COVID yet. Just as community leaders here, I think we need to remind people in the community to follow the rules, and hearing more and more what sounds like parties in the village and gatherings, and I think people are getting very COVID tired, but it's not time to let up yet. So I was contacted by CTV News. I don't know if I mentioned at the last meeting, asking about where I went for Christmas, if I went anywhere, and I was glad to say I didn't go anywhere. I didn't see my extended family. So It's hard on all of us. I think it's a test of our society, but you know, we got to get through this. We're not out of the woods yet, and that's all I have.
Good. Thank you. Any, Councillor Trowbridge?
Yeah, I share in congratulating Jamie. I'm eager to start working with Belcara, but I want to also congratulate John Snell because they have a new council member too now. So it's important to recognize him. He ran uncontested, but whenever anyone steps up to give this community service, it's impressive because with the challenges they have, it can be very thankless for a long period of time. So I think he deserves our congratulations as well.
Yeah, good point. And I totally slipped my mind, but it's, especially in a small community, it's tough. It's not easy. And a big congratulations to them. And we look forward to working with our sort of fellow councillors in Belcara in any way that we can help out. So I appreciate that. Okay, I'll now move it on to our Chief Administrative Officer's report. Ms. Halliwell.
Thank you, Mayor McEwen. Just a few items. Councillor Laidler had mentioned the next Public Safety Committee meeting is going to be held on February the 10th. As part of that, we've invited the BC Conservation Officer to come and do a presentation on wildlife interaction. This was something that we had also been working on through the Environment Committee. Registration will be open for people to attend the meeting. And we'll be putting some information out on Facebook in the next day or so. But the meeting itself will also have a Zoom link as part of the agenda that people can just jump in to the meeting at 7 o'clock on February the 10th. So we'll look forward to that ahead of the spring season and the bears coming out of hibernation. We're just putting the final touches on our winter newsletter, so that should be hitting mailboxes in the next couple of weeks. And I also wanted to just note that we've been working hard to try to update our website when we can and as we can, given some of the functionality limitations that we have, to put more information out for our residents, more resources, and to make things a little bit more clear in terms of our processes and where information can be found. So a big thank you to our communications consultant, Michelson Consulting, as well as Carmen, who is our communications coordinator at the Village Hall, for their hard work on that. And I'd just like to also echo the thanks to our Public Works crew. I think that I know for myself, I've been very thankful to see very little snow over this winter period and the mild temperatures. I know that regardless of the lack of snow, our Public Works are still out at 4 o'clock in the morning, making sure that our roads are salted and that all the roads are clear if there's forecast for snow. So thanks to them as well. And that's it.
Good. Okay, we have a couple information.
Oh, Mayor McEwen, sorry to interject. Councillor Weberink had his hand up.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Weber.
Sorry, through the chair to Ms. Halliwell. Can I suggest that this public safety meeting where this conservation officer is finally going to come out and speak, or through Zoom or whatever, that we have a combined environment committee meeting, safety committee meeting? Or is that the only thing on the agenda for the safety committee that day?
I believe we could consider that for sure. The meeting itself wouldn't be limited to anybody, so all the Environment Committee members would certainly be welcome to attend the meeting. However, we can follow up, and I will follow up with Ms. Elric in terms of discussing a joint committee meeting if there's a desire to do that from both the chairs, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've been trying to get that going for a while, so I didn't realize it's coming up so quick. But yeah, I think
Ms. Halliwell, I don't have a problem with that. So
great. Okay, we'll follow up.
Great, thank you.
Good. Okay, we have a couple information items. The minutes of the Community Engagement, Culture and Inclusion Committee held on November 12th, and the minutes of the Public Safety Committee held on December 9th, 2020. I'll now open it up to public question period, and I'm going to start off because I have one from Linda Weinberg. So I'll read it out. I'm not sure where to send my comment as I don't want to make a presentation. However, I am concerned that in the midst of planning for the hub, dealing with COVID, and reworking the subdivision bylaw, the very important issue of preparing for disasters has fallen off the table. Since we no longer have the committee, I'm asking that the subject be given to the Public Safety Committee, and they can work with staff committee to prepare a comprehensive review and public report of the state of Anmore's preparedness and suggestions for improvements. And while I have your attention, Anmore once voted to remain a no streetlight community, but the new bylaw simply states levels and types. Nowhere is there a mention of the dark sky principle that was voted on. I don't think the specific change has been discussed or even noticed by the community at large. I propose the street lighting section of the bylaw be edited to include the dark sky principle. Thank you for your attention to these matters, Ms. Linda Weinberg. I will say that I, as of recently and over the last sort of 6 months, been getting a lot of emails about people concerned about how dark it is and the safety that that brings upon us. So, you know, this is going to be a really contentious issue. I know that, you know, as you walk through Ravenswood and some of these other subdivisions, a lot of gate posts, there's ambient lighting, which is giving a kind of a best of both worlds in some aspects. It gives a light for security, but it also doesn't take away from the dark skies principles in some regards. But we don't have a lighting thing. So I just, Ms. Halliwell, do you know much about this, or?
I believe we still have Mr. Boyd on the line, and he might be able to speak more specifically to what's in that subdivision and development control bylaw as it relates to lighting and dark sky principles. I don't believe that there was anything that had been included in the previous works and services bylaw either, but I see Mr. Boyd has joined us here, so maybe I'll refer it over to you.
Mr. Boyd.
So the resident is correct. There's no mention regarding the dark sky principle. Again, this subdivision has been adopted for future subdivisions, but we've also written the caveat within there that each subdivision will be reviewed on its merits for the requirement for street lighting. So it doesn't mean that every single new subdivision shall require it. I think it will be a question as we go forward of, do we want to start lighting subdivisions, yes or no? I think there's more discussion, as the mayor alluded to there, about do we want to continue with the dark sky principle or not? The requirements are there, the standards have been set. If we wish to continue to have dark skies, that would basically preclude having any street lights in future subdivisions.
And we do currently have, like Hemlock has streetlights on it. We do have some streetlights that are around. So it'd be interesting to see, you know, from a community point of view, how they're you know, they've been around for, Paul, what am I, 20 years anyway, I guess, with that subdivision?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think you bring up a good point with Ravenswood. I think Ravenswood's a perfect example of why we don't need streetlights. Yeah. I really support the dark sky principle. I think it makes Anmore unique, particularly with subdivisions. I mean, the way we're building subdivisions, these houses are lit up like Christmas trees, some of them. And I recall Councillor Trowbridge suggesting that if everybody had, you know, driveway lights, you know, that would give enough ambient light to the street to provide a level of safety. And still, you know, if you have low cutoff lighting, you can still respect the dark sky principles and address the safety, and without the added cost of maintenance to the village. So, yeah, I like, and this is sort of what I was talking about earlier with this new bylaw. Like, it just gives us choices. If we do decide, you know, that we're going to, you know, I think one of the examples was brought up was Burrard Commons. Whatever that's going to look like, that this is in place so that we don't have to start figuring that out when we do decide that we want something different or we don't. It just gives us options, and it lays down some of the groundwork if we need it. But you know, I'm personally not in favor of changing the dark sky principles. I think it's working great.
It's interesting because they just recently, over the last few months, switched out the lights on Hemlocks to LEDs, and what a difference! Holy crow, they're significantly brighter. It really is amazing. But it also, you know, I don't mind seeing the soft lighting at the end of streets, especially some of the challenging ones like in Crystal Creek and stuff like that better orient you regard where the road goes and stuff like that, especially on a foggy night. So, you know, there is pluses and minuses. I personally, I love the the dark sky principle where we're not being flooded out by, by floodlights. But then you look at some of our residents, near Anmore Green, they're facing, they're getting the lights from the schools that are there as well. So that's a challenge for them. So anyway, it is something that we need to have further discussions about. So any other comments or any other questions?
Councilor Trowbridge.
I believe Councillor Trowbridge has a question, Mayor.
Councilor Trowbridge.
Yeah, I wouldn't be eager to see city-style streetlights where we can't look up and see the sky, obviously. But I do see the argument that there is a safety issue, and we establish a safety committee because of those kinds of things. And I don't think it would be wise to make, as the community around us grows, I don't think it would be wise to make Anmore that super dark, attractive target for shenanigans. Something like a Ravenswood, I'd love to see us explore that further, so that those post lights are down low, but they flood the sidewalk. You can see people walking. It's clearly a much safer environment, but you look up and the sky is still dark. So I think there's a compromise. I don't think you have to go total blackness, and I don't think you have to have street lights either. So I'd like to see us explore the opportunities.
Yeah, and I think as well, with some of the recent police activity, the first thing the police usually comment to people is, you need more lights on around your house. You need to light up your house to be able to make it more of a deterrent. So it is a real balancing act. So good. Anyway, I don't see any more questions for public question period. So I'm going to move to adjourn. So I want to move seconded. Any further discussion? See none. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you everybody for joining us tonight and enjoying the virtual world that we all live in. Hopefully we'll be back in person soon. Thanks again.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.